Are you all set, Melly?
I'm good.
Okay. The first question is, did you get a chance to look at the Zorp video website?
I did briefly, yes.
Okay. Let me kind of walk you through the genesis of all this. And our chairman is David E. Cole, whose name you probably are familiar with, started the Center for Automotive Research. He was actually, we're executing a project that's kind of his passion project, be able to capture innovation in manufacturing and processes in manufacturing as they develop. But regionally, he wanted to do interviews with senior people like him, hey, this is what we learned, and share that with the younger folks. Well, he's a close personal friend with Mark Royce at GM, and he ran that idea past Mark, who hated the idea and said, no, that's not what I want. What I want to be able to do is capture the innovation and processes of my young engineers, 50% of whom have 5 years or less experience in the auto industry, but they are very, very innovative. So what we did is the grand pivot, and so we're in the process of getting our pitch deck together for funding. We're doing customer discovery right now to make sure we're on point. And it could start with something as simple as a smartphone. Everybody carries smartphones. Everybody uses smartphones, and the younger generation are, in love with their smartphone. And so you could use that to begin the process. And say it's kind of like I worked for 3 years in auto plants when I was working my way through college. And it's kind of like, think of it as a video suggestion box. Somebody thinks they have a really great idea. They want to share it right away with higher ups. Sometimes there's a bonus involved, but maybe they're just really excited and they want to share this idea. They think it's a really great, better way to do something. And so what they would do is they don't have to use a smartphone. They could use any kind of recording device, but we just assume that would be simple because everyone carries those. So they would then capture it and then put it into the Zorp video platform. It's software as a service. And then they would tag it. They would describe it. They would say who the author is. And then it would go up to the next level, whatever that might be, the foreman, the plant manager, or whatever it might be. It would be a hierarchical structure for review. And it was really, really, really good for companies like you that are international companies. If that's decided that's a really great way to do something, then it could be distributed worldwide very quickly. And then you can add all sorts of things to it. You can add attachments to it. Actually, this is more Maley's area. Why don't you take it from here, Maley?
Well, the general concept is that somebody's able to record a video, upload it into the system, title it, describe it, tag it, add whatever attachments are appropriate. Could be Word documents, PowerPoints, Excel files, PDFs, images, photos, whatever is appropriate for that video. And once you hit submit, what happens is the system gathers all this information, puts it into the database, thus allowing somebody else within the company or within a group or a department, whatever hierarchy that's going to be set up as, to be able to search on anything related to this topic. And this video and other videos related to it would show up in the search results. That's the general concept of what we're doing over here. In other words, since Industry 4.0 is requiring companies in general, regardless of what type of company it is, to have knowledge management as part of what it is that they are doing. The concept of knowledge management says, I also need to be able to understand, how do I record or store, probably is a better word. How do I store the information, the knowledge that we have in our company? And then how do I communicate it out to anybody else that might be looking for it within the company? And so to that extent, Zorp Video was conceived on the idea that we are about knowledge management, specifically knowledge capture, and that the impetus for all of this came from David Cole. David Cole's father used to be the president, CEO, and over at GM early back in the, I think it was 60s and 70s. And then later on, Dave continued to go down the path of being in the automotive industry. So he's an influential person in that space when it comes to automotive. This was kind of his starting point, but then we've taken it quite a ways since then. Especially following Mark Royce's comments as far as, hey, I don't need, the knowledge of the people that are retiring. I need the knowledge of the people that are currently employed, and I need to be able to get that out within the company. And so that kind of turned, the concept of the project around a little bit.
So what do you feel is Sorb's value add?
That you can instantly capture the innovation instead of having somebody draw up a white paper or something like that and say, hey, we've discovered this. You can use video as a tool, and then the innovator, he or she, can then explain why they think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right, and why the company should use it. And the other part is it can be used as a teaching tool. I mean, if it's a complicated process, complicated innovation, video is a great way to teach people much faster than you're reading a diagram trying to figure out exactly where this widget connects to that widget or whatever. You can actually see it in the video. They walk you through the process. And then again, like Millie said, you can add a bunch of different attachments to it if you need deeper dives into how this would break down, whatever the situation might be. So it's really a learning tool, but it's also a knowledge capture tool. And so, again, Industry 4.0, I would look at the stats all the time. Maybe half the manufacturers are using it right now as it is intended, with all the things that it can do with 3D modeling and AI and machine learning, and just goes on and on and on. A lot of the smaller manufacturers, the tier twos, Amelie works with a lot of those, their IT staff might be pretty small, might be 2 or 3 people. And they're so busy doing every other thing that, that as these sorts of things are developed, you guys do the stampings, others do the parts and things like that, pass them on up to the tier ones who, then get them all set to go to the automakers where they assemble them. So it would become more of a way for information to move up and down the chain. It could even come from above, like the OEM says, hey, we want to change the processes, and they pass it on down through the supply chain quickly and show the video of what it is that they want to change. And everybody can grasp it right away and make whatever changes are necessary, because agility is very key in manufacturing these days. I come from a strong manufacturing background. My mother worked in an auto plant. I worked in an auto plant. I was a former free press auto writer. I still cover auto tech at Michigan Technology News. So I know that everything is, how quickly can you move? You can't do cars in 4 years anymore. By that time, everything's out of date. I know they're trying to get down to the 18-month car. They may, who knows? But that's kind of the value proposition as we see it. But it's more importantly how you see it.
I mean, I think the concept is that we're helping manufacturers meet Industry 4.0 requirements. That's probably one of the bottom lines. And within Industry 4.0, we've got a narrow segment that we're focusing in on. And so as Industry 4.0 requirements are pushed down to companies in general, the question is, how do you manage knowledge? How are you going to capture it? And then how do you communicate it? So that's probably one of the main points. Secondary to that, the idea is it's helping you become more efficient in how do you get the information across your company. Now, granted, some of this also has to do with the size of the company. And so, maybe a team of 20 people, this may not be appropriate for, whereas if you have 100 people or more, this might be a better choice. But that's kind of what we're trying to do in these discovery meetings, is to better understand what size manufacturers are more likely to be, are going to warm up to this idea, and do they need it? So I guess that's one of our questions to you. I mean, actually, Mike has a few other questions lined up, but how big is Hatch in terms of number of employees?
Yeah, we're worldwide about 1,300. So,
Oh, okay.
I guess we're called officially a small to mid-sized manufacturer.
Would you
We-
classify yourself as a tier 2 then?
We sell to tier 1s, tier 2s, and OEMs. So, BMW, Nissan, Bosch, Lear, Faurecia, Webasto, everything in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as many of the auto manufacturers our size, there's lots of requirements. And, infrastructure wise, it's not like we have an IT team of 300. It's, a few people. And what perked my interest in this is I have responsibility personally for marketing, training, contract administration, and special projects like strategy and things like that. So really the training side of what I do is what really perked my interest. And we have, done several different things. We've taken our iPhones and we videoed parts. I've looked at hiring companies that work for companies like GM to do complete line videos. We, and kind of everything in between there. There are several issues, and I hate to start off with issues, but there are several issues when you're doing this type of work. Processes change, parts change. There's always innovation in things that are evolving. A lot of what we do is confidential. So if I get something out into the cloud and it gets out of the cloud, that can be very devastating. So I have to be really careful about that. There are things that seem boring to other people that are really important. How you gauge a part, how you hold the part, how you hold the gauge, how you put the part in the weld equipment. We do stamping as our core business. However, in addition to stamping, we do assembly, welded assembly. So we have quite a bit of robotics and non-robotics. We have everything from what they consider somewhat small presses to 1,600 ton presses. Transfer, like I said, robotic transfers, and literally everything in between. So there is all kinds of opportunity for us to find different ways, particularly for the training portion of what we do. I don't see us working with specifically engineers, and someplace like GM has hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of engineers. That's not how it, we do have engineers. We have a sales and tech office here in Chelsea, Michigan, and we do have an engineering team, and we do work with CAD, and we work with all the latest softwares, 3D printers, and we do all of that. We work on primarily complex parts. We don't do what they call stamp and ship, which would be a lot easier. But we do things that are, like roof frames, and, we do some like hinges, and in Fowlerville, we do a lot of assembly of what I consider smaller parts. We do roof frames, bumper beams, so we have a variety of sizes.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you have a variety of activities when it comes to the actual work that you're doing, and then you have a fairly large team as well. What I found interesting when you were first introducing this segment is you had hired outside companies to come in and take videos.
No,
and,
I've talked to them.
oh.
We haven't hired them. They're too expensive.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they don't,
all right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think,
I was
the
just gonna
last
ask
one I
you about
talked
that.
to, the last one I talked to would do one part, one line. And it would be like $25,000, and they were working for GM. We don't have that kind of budget.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's
we
the
don't
other
have
thing.
anywhere
what-
near that type of budget.
Yeah, but what we're suggesting with Zorp videos that you would allow your staff to be able to do this work as they're working. So the concept here is capturing your own knowledge, using your own staff, and having the ability to load it up into a secured environment, which could either be on-premise or cloud. What we're looking at doing is have the data on-premise, but references that might be necessary as part of the process would be grabbed from the cloud, but your core content stays within your company, within your own network. So having your staff being able to do this, the idea is that you're not adding any additional fees to this. And you can take as many videos as you want and do as many attachments as you want. As the processes changes, somebody can jump in and start doing this. It just requires an iPhone or any type of mobile device to be able to take the video or have somebody explain something and show something that can then be stored. And like you said, the concept is that it's for training purposes. Other people are able to come in, take a look at what this looked like. As a matter of fact, you can have a history too. So as you know, you build the video of one product or one line, and things change, and that you could have an updated video and then another updated video. And so it kind of gives people the sense of, well, here's where we started and here's how we got to where we're going, or where we are, I should say.
And then
So
the
there's
database,
some-
talk about the database, how it's searchable, Mealy.
Yeah, so the idea is when somebody's uploading the video, now they have the ability of, titling it with whatever the right title needs to be for this, describing it as whatever length they want, and then tagging it with the appropriate tags. This way, when somebody's searching, this video is gonna show up in the search results within that system. And so, especially anything that is tagged similarly. So if you had one line and the structure that you set up is that this line's tag or tags are this, and that's what everybody would use if they're taking a video, for example, of that line. Anything related to that would show up, including those historical videos that I was referring to. That does give that sense of, when it comes to training, understanding how you got to where you are and why you got there and what were the changes, and giving staff, whether they're new or have been there, a sense of, how did this whole thing come about? And it's literally giving training without necessarily them needing the experience. And so this historical path, I think, is an interesting value add here.
Yeah, and then what it does is it takes the video and converts it to text as well. So that's how it's searchable. Google does that all the time. If you look at YouTube videos, you can, it's their technology. We actually approached Google about seeing if we could license their technology, and they didn't want to do that. So, but we know exactly how they're doing it. And we've got a number of developers we've talked to, and we can replicate that pretty easily. So that would it's very searchable. It's a text-based stuff that uses meta tags, and certainly with speech you can't use meta tags, but we do convert it then into text. Then it becomes searchable. I think I got that right, Mealy?
Yep. Yes, you're right. I don't know if you've ever been to YouTube, Suzanne, but there is a section where you can actually read the voice that has been transcribed, and it's very interesting. And so this is part of this process as well, and adds to the ability of that video being shown in the search results. So this is again, variety of value adds along the way here.
Okay, so probably one of the reasons Jennifer suggested that we talk is I spent 40 years working in the technology field, mostly on the financial analytic area, and some in the insurance space. So, technology is something I really try and push here. Um, unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't move as fast as
I
I want it
agree.
to move.
I know.
So tell me, are you doing, there's two questions I have. One is, are you aware of the current grant that the state of Michigan has for the Internet of Things? They have a certain amount of money that's targeted for this
IoT.
initiative. Yeah. So that might help you in the state of Michigan. I know one of the things I'm also, yeah.
Do you know the name of that? Not to interrupt. You caught my full attention. So, because that's the stage
Now
you're in,
I
is trying to raise money. So,
yeah. So I sit on the Michigan Manufacturing Association Service Corps, and I board, and I'll see if I can find it.
okay.
Because one of the things I was thinking about is I really would like to get a learning management system. And I see these two things working together. And I said to them, would that qualify? I think this would qualify way more than what I.
Okay.
Yeah,
was
let me
I'm
say
surprised,
that.
but okay.
Yeah, so
I'll
I'll
We'll
look
take a
into
look
that.
at it.
Yeah,
Um,
and the MEDC knows me well. They're actually one of my sponsors on MI Tech News, and I know everybody all up and down the line. And they were
Yeah, it's
also
not
working.
them. It's just I get a mailing from somebody.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I'll get that information
Okay.
to you.
Sure.
And then my other question is, are you starting with concepts? You know, because I think that one of the things that's difficult for companies, particularly companies our size right now, you know, if you're working in automotive, you are working hard every day. Being flexible, being on top of what needs to be on top of, you know, being good corporate citizens, et cetera. So are you working on concepts? Are you working on anything where it's a little bit versus everything at one time, so that we, as you know, manufacturers, we can see maybe how this would go, and taking those successes and making them into bigger projects? Are you doing anything like that?
So what we want to be able to do is actually get to a point where we actually have an MVP developed, so a minimal viable product. And the reason for that is when a manufacturer, whether it's a demo for a demo purposes or testing purposes, says, yes, let's give this a try, we don't want to end up waiting 6 months to actually do an installation. So if we do the MVP to start with, then we might have a 90-day lag time to get the product into a test mode within a manufacturer. So we have weighed the pros and cons of, let's say, just doing a demo or a testing platform versus taking it a step further, let's say another 3 or 4 months to get to the MVP. This way, when we start to talk to folks like you, we're saying, hey, you know what, give us 90 days and we'll get it installed. I think that's going to be a better path for us to take, so that we can, in fact, like you said, can we get 3-5 manufacturers for testing purposes? And I realize there's going to be a lot of odds and ends that we deal with. Suzanne, it sounds like you and I are early adopters compared to a lot of other people out there. I started our,
and I know what it's like to be an early adopter.
Yeah,
I say to
challenging.
them, I'm older than almost everybody I work with, except for the people on the plant floor. So I'm like, I get it. And I know the price you pay to be an early adopter.
An early adopter, I know. And so, like, for example, you know, my marketing company is 35 years old, but I started the internet group in '94 when there was nothing really out there yet. And I remember we installed, we had an ISP division back in the 1990s. And so we installed our first T1 line into one of our clients in Birmingham at the time. And we got it all installed. And the guy who's heading up this project is so thrilled. He gets on Netscape and brings up Yahoo. And, you know, this is great, blah, blah, blah. He goes into the president's office, shows it to him, and the president looks at it and says, now what?
Yeah.
And it's like, no imagination.
Yeah. Now what? Well, are you from the Ann Arbor area? The Detroit Ann Arbor?
I live in Ann Arbor.
Mike is, I'm in the Birmingham area.
Okay, so you might have heard the company. The first tech company I worked for was ComShare.
Oh,
And Rick Crandall started it, and he did what they called a management dashboard, basically.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. It was in the 80s, and I'm just like, everybody talks about all these dashboards, and I don't even think they called it ExecuView, I think. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, you guys aren't even close to a good dashboard anymore. Salesforce.com does a good job, but others just don't. And they became Vertafore, and then I went to work for a company called Circon. That became Infor. They're still
Info's out there. So.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So and they service the insurance market. So anyhow, all of
Interesting.
that
Yeah,
history.
yeah. I mean, I think this is the hard part is when you know, we know that this knowledge management, knowledge capture systems, whatever they may look like, have to be put in place. The concept is a little bit different than having an LMS.
Yeah,
The LMS's approach is literally down to training,
yeah,
whereas a knowledge management system is about sharing ideas,
Yeah.
right? And sharing what the process actually is. So it might, where the LMS is more about training somebody on, you know, whatever details there are to be an employee, the knowledge management system is more about how do you become more efficient in your day-to-day activities, right?
Mhm.
So you're already past being a new employee, you're actually working now, and this might, you know, this is going to be past what I would consider the LMS's responsibility.
So
That's how I would break these two up.
yeah, and would you be willing to come and take a tour? I think
sure, I
that-
could do that. Yeah.
Okay. I think it would be a good idea for you to see kind of what a manufacturer this size does. And
Okay.
We could go to Howell, which would probably be more, there's more technology used there. We use it in Chelsea too. It's just a little bit more there. And I just think it might help you get a sense for how we do things. Everything we do is, all of our equipment's run by computers. I'll never forget, right before the pandemic, I had a group of young people in, probably 20 little boys that were young men that were 10 years old, and one little girl that was the same age. And she looked at me and she said to me, "Do I have to know how to use a computer to work here?" And I said, "Yes, you do." We use an MRP system called Plex.
I'm real familiar with Plex. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were one of their early adopters. We've been a beta client for them. And how things could interact with that too is, would be of interest. It is also, in the cloud now. But all of our equipment, all of our data, we can look every moment to see how many parts and where they're made and if there was an issue. And I have looked at technology that goes into the actual equipment and does the videotaping at the point of a issue. And again, for companies our size right now, that technology is just too new. So it costs, the cost is too high for us.
Sure.
But I like something like this where we can pick a product or a line or something. You don't have to come. It was just a suggestion.
I'd enjoy that too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, situation dependent, I might be able to ask our Vice President Melissa to join Mike on that, whatever dates you guys decide.
Okay.
My schedule is a little crazy for some of these things, but certainly I agree with you. Just understanding what the video, what's going to be taken in this video system, and or what are the different types of knowledge that you're going to want to capture. Because you have the line, Mike and I agree that the line is one issue, but then the product is done, and from the product out or whatever the QA processes, that could be another one. The engineering side in the beginning and the planning of how that part gets, there's a whole nother segment there. So if we take a look from start to finish, you might
Yeah.
identify 5 major areas. Us seeing those areas, I think I agree with you. I think would be helpful just to get an understanding of, well, what does that, when that employee picks up that phone and starts videotaping themselves, or they're videoing something on their desk or on a line, or outside, wherever whatever is required for that video. We need to probably better understand what some of that looks like. And
Sure.
from our standpoint on the technology side, it's real easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the actual, how practical is it, and how do we make it practical? That's where your invitation would be helpful.
Yeah.
And
And
where we
Mike,
are
what
right
I would,
now, where
Mike,
we
what
are,
I,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry, what I would suggest is coming to sales and tech kind of meeting, just kind of, spending a half hour here in Chelsea, going over to the stamping facility in Chelsea. Their major client is Howell. And then ending up in Howell. So that's how I would suggest we kind of do it. So it would take a few hours, but I think
Sure.
it would help me understand whether we're really a good target for you. And it would
Yep.
help you understand our manufacturers, because there's quite a few of
Sure.
us in this area, like
Mhm.
Hatch targets for you. It's just a suggestion.
Mhm.
It's just,
No,
people buy through their
makes
eyes, and, it's just the marketing person in me. I always like to be in person. And just
Yep.
so you know, I will be in a mask. You won't have, I believe all those requirements are gone. But we are accepting
We can do
visitors
that.
now, so it's not a problem.
Sure. I think it's great. I think it'd be perfect.
Okay,
And
Mike,
right now
I'm
where we're
sorry.
at is, Suzanne, we've gotten 5 bids from developers, but we don't want to move forward on any of these until we're completely sure we're on the right track.
Right.
So, if we could zero in, and maybe some of our assumptions are incorrect, and instead it's something else, saves us a lot of money. Why do it twice, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. In this conversation, you've mentioned 2 parts that I found important. One is the IoT grant is not something that would have come to my mind, because I feel like this is a little bit outside of IoT, but maybe there's a segment inside of their description that makes sense. So definitely we'll look into that. Your invitation to visit you, I think, is going to be equally very helpful. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really appreciate the time we spent today. Whether we get to move forward or not, I absolutely love these types of things. I think it's really important. I think one of the things that your team should realize is that I always used to have interns, and I always used to say, this is marketing 101. It's not working at PR agencies. So I'm going to say this about manufacturing 101, is we have a whole host of people with all kinds of talents, and some who have smartphones, and some, believe it or not, that do not.
No.
And some of those people are the most important people that work at our company. They have the most important knowledge. So anything we can do to visually help them is really important. That is one of the most important things I can do as a leader in our company, is really finding ways that we can train people and get them to really understand what we're doing and what to look for. And so this is why I'm kind of always pushing for this. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 other things you could help us with when you get a chance. If you can recall the name of that grant program,
Yep.
we'd love to be able to reach out to them, because this is not an inexpensive platform to build. We've got bids around $300,000 to build it out. So,
well, and they are giving them more to people like you than people like me.
Okay. And the other thing is, if you can suggest, again, we're just doing customer discovery now, if you can suggest other manufacturers you're working with that you think might have an interest in at least discussing this with us, we'd really appreciate that as well. We're trying to, according to, I have SBDC coaches with me now, and they say we need to talk to at least a dozen or so manufacturers just to make sure that we've got a product that the market really wants, right? So if you get any assistance in that area, or even at the manufacturing group. I mean, I know Jennifer DeMudd real well, and I know she's involved with the Michigan Manufacturers Association. So we're trying to reach out to all those folks to get as much input as we can.
Yeah, I would probably kind of target the people that are in charge of membership there. And I'm meeting with Jiffy Mix next week, maybe. We're all working on National Manufacturing Day together, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do there too, so.
Yeah, we need to get the pitch deck together. We got everything done. We got the trademarks done, the legal work done. We're registered in Delaware. We got all that stuff done. The final two pieces are the pro forma for software as a service, and we got a pretty good handle on that. And then, of course, we got to make sure the customers, it's great to create a product, but if you create a product the customers don't want, what do you have, right? You know,
Right.
so.
Yeah, so the grant is through the MEDC. It's for small manufacturers, but how they define that's kind of loose. And so I'll tell you, there's a couple people. I'll ask if I can share their names and contact information, because I work with the MEDC, which is the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
Right.
And I also work with the counterpart of Jennifer in Livingston County. And she is connected to all of the manufacturers in Livingston County. And there's some big ones there. Thai Summit, Akai Sai, and then some smaller ones too, like the Popcorn Place, and just a lot of different ones. So
That'd be wonderful.
we belong to a manufacturing collaborative, so there might be some options for you there.
Excellent. We really
sounds great.
appreciate any help you could provide. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm
Wonderful.
sorry. We're kind
Thank
of
you,
over our
Suzanne.
time, and I need to
That's
I'll
okay.
get on.
Thank you.
Okay.
You
Have
are
a great
great.
day.
All right. Thanks very
Talk to
much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.